Hello, everybody. Welcome to a discussion of the Books of Babel, focusing especially on the Fall of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. This is book 4 of the Books of Babel, the final book in the series. I just recently finished it, and I am here today to discuss it with my buddy Alan from the Library of Alexandria. Hello, Alan. How are you today?
What's up, Philip? I'm good. Ready to talk about Babel. I haven't talked about Babel in ages.
Yeah, well, I know I have to acknowledge a couple things. One, I read the series because of you. This and actually, as you know, the Long Price Quartet are the two big series I have read, basically listening to you rave about them and thinking, all right, I guess I have to read those. And you are now 2 for 2 for
so good. They're so good, Philip.
So I loved the Long Price Quartet, and I love the Books of Babel, including, by the way, spoiler, everybody. Oh, by the way, we aren't actually talking about spoilers right yet. We are going to get into spoilers later, but we are going to give our sort of non-spoiler assessment of the series. So if you haven't finished the series or even haven't read any of the books at all, you can stick around for a bit because we're going to basically say what we think about the series, and then we're going to get into the spoilers. But I will warn you. But yeah, so the other thing I want to acknowledge is that we were part of a group that was discussing this series. And we had some great discussions on the first 3 books. And then everybody read the last book. And we are somewhat divided in our opinions on book 4.
As usual.
As usual. And the division, not that any of us are upset or anything like that. We're all fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion. And I totally respect our dear friends who differ with us on the Fall of Babel. Perfectly fine. I think Johan from the Library of Viking gave it a 1 star. And obviously,
really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Like Patrick Leo. Patrick was not part of our discussion group, but I think he also is sort of one of those 1-star persons.
And Kyle. Don't ever forget Kyle.
And Kyle. Also Ben. I don't know how many stars he gave it, but
Ben was in the low medium range.
Okay. And whereas Grace, I think, was more like middling on it as well.
Yeah, she was like the high medium range.
Okay. So now, if I do not really love star ratings, as you know, Alan.
We know, Philip. We know.
I know. But
I saw that numerical rating you gave your finalists.
I had to. It's part of the rules.
Yeah. I know. I laughed. I'm like, I bet that pained Philip to have to put a number.
It was painful, actually. It was painful. Somebody even wrote, because I didn't give a rating in the review of my finalists, and somebody even wrote, well, what's your rating for it? And I was like, so I did eventually put a rating because I have to. But anyway, I would give this 5 stars. If I gave stars, I would give this book and the series as a whole 5 stars. And we're going to talk about why. Non-spoiler first. What would you like to say in a general way first about the series as a whole, or Fall of Babel?
I would like to say that you are a gentleman of discerning taste.
At least right now.
Yes. You have joined an elite club of people who have the right opinion and appreciate things that I like. There are the naysayers, those Jacobins out there trying to go against what all the things that are good about our Sun Kingdom. We can't do anything about that. So I realize that I've set myself up to be beheaded soon. We should have been the Jacobins. Whoops. Anyway, I've lost it. But this series is so good. This was, again, first series I read that I hadn't already read on book 2, and I loved it. And I just love the way Bancroft writes. I know some people don't, and that's okay. Everyone should understand that we're it's not just me and Philip here because we fought with everybody else. That's what he's saying. It's not like we're well, we hate you, so we're gonna do it without you. We're hey guys, y'all probably don't want to talk about it, right? So we'll just talk about it. Okay, cool.
It was a very cordial agreement that you and I would gush together about this, and that they can do their, and we may talk to them again about it. Who knows? But
Yeah.
they're most welcome to join us
Yeah.
in a discussion. But
I love this series, and I love what, like, Bancroft did so many things that I just didn't expect throughout the series, and
yes.
really did some things that I hadn't seen in a fantasy book before, and has really well drawn characters, in my opinion, that I was able to relate to and root for, even archetype characters that I don't like Valletta and Adam. Like, I hated both of them for a book and a half, and then I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm gonna get behind them. And Irene, she meathead. I liked Irene too. Like, I liked so many of the characters. Hold on, remind me to talk about a character I don't like.
Okay,
we get to spoilers.
But we won't forget.
Yeah,
that.
but I really enjoyed it. I know the main complaints about this, and I don't care. I don't think it's right. I don't think that this book is more overwrought with words that we don't know than the other ones. Like, I think Bancroft's prose is pretty flowery, yet, as you said, accessible throughout. But I just love these. Like, it's just, I love the tower, and I love like the like, thus always to tyrants. Like, I'm with him. Like, I'm like the demagoguing despots that take advantage of the downtrodden, is my thing. Like,
that's your thing.
Yeah, I like that. And there's just something, the way he deals with the hoarding of knowledge was really bone chilling for me. Like I've had, read books where they deny access to people for stuff, but for some reason, like the Hans and just the scribbling, the crossing out of words, to where just the people just the guy at the top is the only one that gets to know anything. It's just horrifying, really.
Yeah.
So I really liked the antagonist. Yeah, I'm just rambling. I loved it. Like, I'm not in love with where we ended up, just because I wanted something different. Like, I wanted something else. That doesn't mean that it was bad, and it doesn't mean I didn't like it. I just, I wish I had gotten what I wanted, which is in no way what I got at all.
Okay, fair enough. No, I agree with everything you said. The prose is magnificent. In my opinion, Josiah Bancroft is one of the most talented writers working in the genre right now, with just a fantastic imagination on top of it. So, just on a sentence by sentence level, this is not a spoiler if I read, like, just randomly, I'm going to read the first sentence in this. He has a gift for similes and metaphors.
Yes.
And almost like it's going to make it sound flowery. It's not flowery. His prose is very accessible, but in the sense that the metaphysical poets like John Donne would have these crazy metaphors where you'd never think of comparing these two things, and yet you gain these great insights into the thing that you're trying to look into in the process. And here's just like the first sentence: the lightning seeded the fog with a fire that churned like a restless embryo. A restless embryo. I never would have thought of that simile, and yet it's so apt. And this is the kind of thing, this is a tiny example of the kind of thing that he does. And I love his prose. I think he's brilliant. He should be a celebrated author. He should be, the guy's extremely talented. So that is one thing I love. I love that he goes for it. I love his imagination. This series is, first of all, it's steampunk. And I haven't read a ton of steampunk, but enough to realize that this is different in some ways. And the whole conceit of this, the whole premise of the series, it's based, yes, the word Babel is a giveaway. There's a Tower of Babel in this, and it is one of the craziest settings, and yet it is so conducive to what Josiah Bancroft is trying to explore in here. What he's produced in the series is nothing less than one of the most brilliant critiques of our society that I've ever come across. And he talks about social hierarchy. He talks about patriarchy. He talks about race. He talks about lots of things that maybe sometimes people feel uncomfortable talking about, but they're put in here and they're a seamless part of the story. There is also an entertaining story for much of the time, but man, the incorporation of theme in here, especially in regard to what he is looking at, how he is exploring our society. I think he nails it in so many ways. The inequalities. This is the stuff that you really dig, Alan. The injustices, the the tendency of humans to go along with the bandwagon and not see the gross injustices and oppression that is right in front of them. It's all there, and it's portrayed so brilliantly in this fantastic setting, this otherworldly thing. And as far as the ending goes, the closest thing I can compare it to, without any spoilers, is I feel like it's in some ways it's not the same thing, but it's another series with a tower that is central to it, and that is Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. I feel like the endings are similar in the sense that
where everyone hates them.
Lots of people hate these endings, and yet they're so brilliant. I think some people love them, and other people just like, what? What did I just read? So that seems to be the reaction to both, and I feel like for similar reasons. I mean, they're obviously different series, different stories, different vibes, but I feel like both authors just kind of go for it with that ending, and it's either going to land or it's not. But I think you have to at least admit that, wow, Josiah Bancroft really goes for it. And so I felt that Bancroft really hit his stride, especially in The Fall of Babel. That I loved each book, and they were slightly different. The first book was quirky and interesting. It got me interested in the main character, Senlin. It's that Senlin Ascends. And then the cast sort of broadened, and I got to know the other characters, and there was strong signals that other people were going to become important in the series. That's The Arm of the Sphinx. And then the third book I found very challenging, but it was so obviously wrestling with these social questions. And the part that really was hard for me was the patriarchal stuff. What happens to some of the female characters in there is very tough, but I found it challenging in the best way. And then we get to Fall of Babel, and I was so engaged and so interested and so invested in all these characters that I love. And I couldn't predict a ton of things, and I love that. Like this is a highly imaginative author who's got a gift on the level of prose. I just feel like there's so much to celebrate in this series, and I'm going to read everything that the dude writes at this point. So I know you've already read the Hexologist.
Yeah, and I wanted to just going off of the social inequality and the social hierarchy it's Bancroft's thing, because it's all over the place in the Hexologist as well. I think the Hexologist is less it feels slightly more grounded lighter, and less it's slightly lighter than Babel, which allows it. I think it allows it to be slightly more serial if it needs to be than Babel. But it's still in here. I want to read this one section. This one aristocrat is like, oh, we don't call them the poor anymore. It's such a hostile, dispiriting word. And the main character's like, well, what do you call them now? We call them the ascendant class, the social marrow, the nation's backbone. Oh, inspiring titles, but do any of them come with better pay? It's a question of respect, Miss Wilby. The insistence that there's nothing shameful about their status. But there is something shameful, isn't there? I mean, the purpose of a euphemism is to shield the speaker from the difficulty of the subject. We say passed away instead of died, put out to pasture instead of just admitting an elder was unceremoniously removed from gainful employment because a younger, cheaper hire applied for their job. You can pretend these circumlocutions are for the benefit of the victim, but they're not. They're for the comfort of the speaker. We call them ascendant class because it makes their suffering feel less shameful for those of us who refuse to address the role we play in perpetuating poverty to the enrichment of ourselves. I say, let's call them the poor and help them. And I'm just like, okay, well, there's your manifesto, bro. He's just so good. I love it. I love this. Hey. In the Hexologist, there's a lot about the responsibility of the governing to those that they govern. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
that's a huge thing that I liked within the Fall of Babel as well. I mean, slightly less overt, as here are the here is the king, and here is his subjects, but the treatment of the Hods as like non-humans, like Untermensch, right?
Yep.
Is it's just, I mean, it's just so good. And I that's just one of the things that I love. Like injustice is something that gets to me. So yeah, I love Bancroft. And the Hexologist, beautiful writing. I love what it has to say. I'm excited for where it's going to go. It is different than the Books of Babel. And I understand, like, when I talked to him, he told me he was trying something different with each of the books in the Fall of Babel, and I think
you can feel that. You can feel that. Yeah.
And a lot of people, from the things that I hear people say that they don't particularly care for. Some people, they got Senlin Ascends and then wanted like more of that, and then it's not exactly that. And some people didn't like Senlin Ascends, but they like Arm of the Sphinx. And then Hod King kind of sets us down and says, hey, now we're going to spend the whole book here in Pelfia, and they're like, well, what the crap? Like, where'd all the swashbuckling adventure go?
What about all the other ringdoms? And
yeah. And it's just like, well, I mean, it's not there. If you want to know what all the other ringdoms do, in the back, you can like literally read all of them of this book. It says all the ringdoms. And then this one is like, I mean, this one should have been 2 books, and tell me even more, because I'm just like, what? Wait, what? Let's continue and do this. And this one is just like, hey, look at these tyrants, because, well, let me know when we get to spoilers.
Yeah, we will. And the fact of the matter is, I feel like he gets he really hits a home run with the themes in the Fall of Babel, in my opinion. And his understanding of how to integrate themes into stories is just wonderful, because what he understands is actually what he has one of his characters explain at one point. This is on page 366. It's an interesting dialogue going back and forth, but one of the characters says, stories are not without consequence. Perhaps, as the other character responds, perhaps the human race will march into the darkness singing songs and telling stories, because that is who we are and what we do, right? The guy has such a wonderful understanding of storytelling and what storytelling can do as a vehicle for exploring who we are, what we are, why we are, and what we could be, and I just love it. I love that aspect of what he's doing here. So with that, anything else non-spoiler for the good of the order, or I think we've done some good gushing already.
Yes, he has there's a book of short stories coming out that all take place in the tower at various times between the books or whatever. It's called an imperial, but EMPYREAL retinue.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So
also, one last thing I would like to say is that there is a level of reading the series that is, I guess, almost allegorical, really.
Oh yeah.
It is. I mean, the tower is a representation of humanity, of all of us, of society, and what happens within it. A lot of it could be taken as almost, I wouldn't call it allegory exactly, but bringing that understanding of it as an allegory, I think actually might help people understand the ending a little bit more, because I think with the way I was reading this book was, theme is like driving the story in many ways. And I love that. I love it when an author allows theme to drive a story. And the ending makes a ton of sense if you're approaching it from the perspective of theme. Whereas if you're not, and you're expecting a conventional ending, you're going to be like scratching your head and wondering, what is this, right?
Word.
So I think it's brilliant, and now I'm ready to start talking about the details, the spoilers. So that is everybody's warning to, if you haven't read Fall of Babel or any of the books in the series, we are now going to get heavy into the spoilers, focusing on Fall of Babel. So, Alan.
Yes.
What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the...
I want to talk about tyranny, because...
Okay, that was the word I was just about to say. So tyranny. Go for it.
So at the end of Han King, like we're left. I mean, some people are like, "Well, I knew." It's like whatever. I'm left wondering: is Marat actually the champion of these plebs who is just like trying to raise them up, or is he like every other demagogue that is just using their plight to elevate himself after having been wronged, right, by his own class? And he's the second one, and I'm like, of course he is. But the way it's handled, like Marat is so despicable. He's so like, I hate him. I hate him so much, and the way it comes out, because and I don't know why I love this line so much. It's like the most chilling line that's just like, hey, I don't care. I'm clearly just doing this because it lets me. I don't care about anybody else. Is on page 264 when he's like, Tom's trying to pretend. He's like, hey, so I just want to, can you like teach me some Hoddish? Like I'm trying to, I'd like to be able to understand your servants. And he just is sawing his cheese, and he just goes, Hoddish is for Hods, Tom. And it's just like just saying that is like, we're not them. Like, are you kidding? Like, welcome to the club. We're above them. We're just using them. I think the Hods are just as useless as everyone else does. And I'm just like, you piece of trash. Like, I hate you.
How about when he wants to, when he is forced to reveal that his legs actually are functional?
Oh, that he can walk. Yeah.
And then he kills every Hod who witnessed it. It was like, well, too bad. You saw it. Boom.
It's like the guy who had the Taj Mahal built and then killed everybody who built it. You can't be witness to this. Like, we got to keep the secrets. Like, everyone thinks that I'm this cripple that I'm the, I don't know, the crippled king. And just terrible. Yeah. Terrible, Philip.
So I think it is a very, as you said, a very accurate study of a demagogue.
Yes.
Marat is indeed, he is using the injustice in order to aggrandize himself. He simply wants to be, instead of he doesn't want to change the social arrangement in any way whatsoever. He just wants to be on top of it. That's the gist of it. And which happens with a lot of revolutions, unfortunately. That seems to be human nature almost. But he's able to channel that anger. And a lot of it is coming from, of course, the way the various ringdoms have evolved into these, contrary to the vision of the bricklayer, who seemed to have wanted this to be some kind of a social experiment, utopia, what have you. And that was a legacy inherited by the Sphinx, who seems to have given up in many ways on trying to regulate all this. And in the face of the various elites from the various ringdoms, who, like that one queen who abandons, Queen Hortensia, right? Who, I'll just read a paragraph here on page 416. This is talking about Edith. She did not feel cynicism or despair. No, she felt angry. I love Edith, by the way. She felt angry. The stupidity, disregard, and entitlement of Queen Hortensia would not bring about a greener spring. Having escaped all consequence, the queen would loaf upon a cloud until her city manager, conscripted airmen, and unlucky Hods could mop up her mess. Then she would return and, with the long guns of her navy bristling at her back, assure her remaining subjects that they had all suffered the inconvenience equally. She would defer any responsibility for the spill, but would certainly accept credit for the recovery. So it went, so it always went. Right?
I hate these people. I hate the people that live with them. I hate them all.
But that's privilege, right?
Yes.
Old story. And, even in societies where we pretend that we have a democracy, you still see big disparity between those with privilege and those without. So we're getting revolutionary here, Alan.
Yes. And it's just inexcusable, like the demagoguery and profiting off of other people's like injustice, the injustice of other people, like telling them you're going to give them justice, when you have no intention of doing so, they're not educated enough to know better because they can't read. Like the Hans are literally crossing out, and he makes sure that they can't read, that they're never.
All right. Wants them to be ignorant. So
Yes,
they're controllable. They're controllable. The ignorant are more easily controlled.
Absolutely. And and then you get into like one of the, I don't know, it's always the debate of like, should you be educated to make decisions? But then if you do that, then you're denying people being able to make decisions because they're not educated. And so, but I mean, what's the, Athens dealt with that as well. Like the Athenian democracy deals with that as well. Letting Scootericles out in the fields come in and be like, well, I guess I want to vote for the war because this guy tells me to. Let's no surrender to Sparta. And it's like, okay, well, now your city's burning. Like, what are y'all doing? Like, you're not making a good decision. But being led by fear mongering and demagoguery,
right?
And there's just more of them. And you see this all throughout history. These leaders realizing that they can utilize the greater number of the lower classes against the and some of them are just radicals who want to put the people at the bottom in charge, but most of them are, they just want to be on top of the system. Like they just want the same system, but different people at the top instead of them. And Marat acts exactly like all tyrants do, where there's no, it's a delusion of themselves, where they completely trick themselves into thinking that what everyone is just like them. Like they can't fathom that other people think differently than them, and that they're blameless. Like they're blameless in what like I love when Marat, it's like on 441 when Marat tells, when Tom is confronting Marat, and Marat's like don't blame this crap on me. Like he's but and I hope you believe this, Tom. Freaking arrogant douche.
Condescending.
Yeah, I hope you believe this, Tom. I do not hate you. I feel sorry for you. I pity you because even when you are offered security, utility, and good company, you cannot accept the opportunity, because to grasp it would first require you to relinquish your grip on your insipid virtues. But what has your high-minded and uncompromising self-righteousness gotten you? What have you gained from following your nearsighted heart, from letting your facile little principles tug you about by the nose? What has been your reward? Misery, loss, degradation. I did not inflict these upon you. I am not the tyrant that ruined your life. You are, Tom, and you know this to be true. And that whole, it's like, oh, so because you haven't profited from your moral compass, the joke's on you. Like your moral compass is useless because you don't profit from it. As if following a moral compass in and of itself is not an aim worth pursuing. And that's the world we live in right now. And it that's part of why I'm so mad all the time. Because
it's a very cynical view of humanity. It's a view that's been expressed many times by all kinds of tyrants, including the Nazis, for example, who basically said, it's very easy to get the people to do what you want. All you have to do is give them someone to fear and hate. And that's exactly what Marat knows and understands. And he says it here on page 459. And the truth is, it wasn't even that hard. It just required a little will and the realization that the human race is motivated not by aspiration with all its sharp edges and long drops, but by the desire for certainty, inclusion, consistency. The Sphinx's mistake was that he projected his noble-mindedness upon everyone else. My genius is that I understand the wellspring of human desire. It bubbles up not from some buried stream of hope, but from a great aquifer of fear. So that's a cynical view of humanity. Sometimes it does feel hard to disagree with Marat, but I'm like you. I don't want to give up on the hope that humanity is capable of compassion, is capable of beauty, is capable of wonder and creativity and communion. I think that we are. And giving up, you become a cynic like Marat.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that the world, and this is what's being explored in this beautiful book.
I know, so good.
It is so good. This is
I
such a magnificent achievement, really. Uh,
agree.
so I think we said a fair amount about tyranny.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad he gets his comeuppance. I hate Marat, and I'm glad. I am glad that. So, because here's a common complaint. I am glad that Edith is the one that takes out.
oh yeah,
Um,
it's so fitting, and
Yeah.
with Riddleman's help at the end with the all,
yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
A lot of people, or a common complaint that I have heard is how it's worded like this: Senlin has become a side character in his own story.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes.
I like it. It bothers other people, and it's fine. I don't care that Senlin is like not useful. Like Senlin in this does not have any powers. He's still just a headmaster. Like I really liked that Bancroft didn't power Senlin up. He is just a guy trying to survive on his wits, while also being still a little, even after all he's been through, still a little stubbornly naive in standing up to Marat. And, people don't like that he has to run and hide from all that's going on. It's, what do you want him to do? He can't fight. He doesn't know how. Right. So I like that Senlin remains just a guy trying to find his way through this in an incredibly
let me say that I not only like it, but I think it's the only logical outcome to the story.
I agree.
Because Senlin begins, and I love the guy, don't get me wrong, I identify with him on some level. Hey. But the fact of the matter is he was complacent and a bit arrogant in the beginning. And
he's not more.
Yeah, but I think it is necessary for this journey of his to be complete, to learn. He's learned humility. He has learned, I mean, look at the way when he interacts with Edith near the end, that moment, one of the several beautiful moments between them, he says, "I, Captain," right? He's like trying to explain, and she's like, "We don't have time right now. We got to get the heck out of here." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I think I need to realize that what she has lived up to her potential." And he just says, "I, Captain." And it's such a beautiful moment between them. Senlin has learned by the end. If this had been a story where Senlin becomes the superhero who saves the day, that would be exactly the opposite of what Bancroft intended from the beginning of this, which is that Senlin has learned that he is part of the community of humanity. And he has learned, he's been kicked out of his complacent little womb that he lived in. And he's realized the vastness of the world and that he's just a little fellow after all. I think it is the perfect way for Senlin to end this, actually, as someone who is almost along for the ride in some sense. You're still hoping for the guy, and he has his heroic moments. He fights against the spider lady, and he has his moments too. But clearly there are others like Edith. And also, I think what happens with, let's talk about Senlin and Maria at the end. I don't know if that's a source of dissatisfaction for some people, but I feel that it was very important that Bancroft gave Maria a voice, gave her her own agency, volition at the end to say, I need some time, and I'm going to have to figure this out. And Senlin, God bless him, has figured it out. And he says, okay. And can I come calling tomorrow? I feel it is the appropriate ending for Senlin and Maria as well. And maybe it doesn't feel satisfying for people who are waiting all this time for them to get back together or whatever. But if it had just been a matter of Maria seeing Senlin and saying, "Oh, it's Senlin, yay," and embracing, and everything's wonderful and everything's back to, no, she went through some horrific trauma, right? And I also think Senlin has realized, I probably acted somewhat inappropriately in the beginning of this relationship too. And Maria, having matured and grown, has probably realized that as well. So they have some talking to do, right?
Christina was listening at the door. She has a lot to say about the Maria Senlin thing.
She's most welcome.
Yeah, I think she's in her pajamas, so I don't think she's going to come on camera. But
good.
That's why she's listening, because she had a lot to say about the
Good. I want her to come and say what she wants to say. That would be awesome.
Christina, you should not be in your pajamas and come say it. She's considering it. So yeah, I'm not trying to strawman anybody and say that what they wanted from Senlin. I'm just confused. Like I don't know what they wanted from Senlin. Because like the only thing that he could have done is what he's doing. Like I don't know how it could have gone differently for Senlin. He's just he is what he is. Now I did not like Maria. Like I didn't like Maria in this book. She's so, and I understand why. I do understand why. Like I'm not like I feel she's a little harsher on Senlin than I feel like she should be. Like I understand but it's just it's almost a Fellison syndrome. It's like she's so unpleasant. Like she's so unpleasant. It's like you're not in that situation anymore. Why are you being so mean to everybody? And I do understand, and I like Maria, but and I think like I fall into the Senlin trap also. The only thing we've seen of Maria is the beginning of the book.
Right.
Like, we only have Senlin's view of who Maria was.
Right.
And we get Maria back, and she is nothing like that. All of the joy that like Senlin described, like her being just so full of life, like her, like the horrific situation that she's been in under Duke Pell for how long has it been? Like 2 years, a year and a half, something like that?
Yeah, just awful to think about.
Yeah, like it has drained her of the vibrancy that we were expecting from Maria. And so it's just unmet expectations. I know that I'm being unduly harsh on Maria. So I'm aware of that. And also it's the fact that, and Christina hates when I say this because, I wish it was Senlin and Edith, because I like Edith at this point. And I
was rooting for Edith too.
He should be with his wife. Like I do understand that, but at the same time, I'm like, but Edith though, like, and so I appreciate Bancroft's ability to create those complex feelings within me as a reader. Like you said, like I don't know what I wanted. Like, did I want them to be like, oh, everything's better, and I do like at the end where she's like, maybe, like I need some time with this, and she does let him see his kid, which is nice. That's good.
I think there's a promise, not a promise, but there's a hint that she just needs time, which is totally understandable.
Yeah, she's got to process this insanity that she's gone through. And but the one thing that disappointed me, that again, like I did not even think you could do this in a book. Yeah. Senlin has no reunion with half the crew.
I know. Yeah.
Like Senlin, he's been in the Black Walls, the Black Trail for forever, and he doesn't reunite with Iron, who he helped Iron become who she is. Like, and she was part of the original crew, and he doesn't see Iron at all.
But who does he see? He sees Edith, of course.
He sees Edith very briefly, and
Valletta.
Yes, because Valletta and Adam are with him, right?
Well, Valletta gets him out of the whole, like, the big closet area. She actually is the one who says, who finds him with Luke Marat and the other Wakemen, and she's like peeking out of the grate there, and she's like sadly sends the little like butterfly thing over to get him, and so she rescues Senlin there. But
it's Edith, Irene, Anne, Redelman, Byron. No reunion with any of them. All just nothing. And I guess it's because like he's part of.
He does see, of course, Edith, right? Because they have their beautiful moment when they're on the different sides of the bubble, right?
Yeah, it's shutting down. Mm-hmm.
And she does the knock. Such a powerful moment.
I just got chills. Most moving part of the book for me was that, and I understood it, and I hated it, but I just loved it. But I was at the same time like, what the crap? Why is Senlin going to space instead of going with Edith? Like, what if we just left Maria on the bubble and like she could go to space and be with
eventually meet some handsome Norwegian dude,
sure. Like absolutely she could, and she doesn't even have to remarry. She can raise her kid on her own, whatever. And but you can't always get what you want. So
I don't think that, I don't necessarily feel that an ending that is emotionally satisfying for me, the reader, is always going to be the best ending.
Yeah.
Or the most compelling ending. So while I'm thinking of it though, Byron, you mentioned Byron. Shout out to Byron for shooting Duke Pell in the eye. Great moment. I don't have a heart. Boing.
The amount of trauma that was in my Discord when we were reading this, like when I was reading the arc, I messaged Bancroft himself when Byron was killed and said, "Oh, what are you doing? Like, are you a psychopath? Like, why are you doing these things?" And then he's like, "Yeah, it was really hard to do. Like, it was, but it was just his time." And then you read 30 on, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, please forgive the harsh."
I actually thought, wait, does he have organs and stuff? Why would that hurt?
Philip, no one else thought that except you. We're just like, no.
Okay.
Like, and Kate did the same thing. She messaged Bancroft in tears, like calling him a horrible man, and Bancroft played it off again. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I got so much hate mail about this." And
good for him.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
That's awesome.
Hate Duke Pell.
All right, we need to talk about some of these other characters, but I do want to talk about, you mentioned the space thing. Let's talk about it. I feel that the ending is bizarre as it is, and I would have predicted it. It makes sense in retrospect. I would submit to you that Bancroft did have an idea what he was doing. I mean, when you look at the tower itself as essentially an engine of a sort, or it's producing power for what would eventually be this spaceship, I guess. Also, the idea that this whole thing was about this idealistic colonizing the universe kind of thing, it fits with the whole bricklayer, his ideals, everything else. But I also feel like, oh my goodness, was he doing something brilliant there? And you could see it right from the first part where we catch up with Adam. When he goes into the city of, what's it called? On the top of the tower.
Got it. I'll be there in a second. Hold on.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
I forget the name of the city too, but it's
sitting at the top. Well, anyway, I'm blanking on that, but
okay, keep going. I'll tell you when I find it. Christina's also here when we have a break.
Oh, awesome, cool. So yeah, whenever she wants to talk about the ending too, great, because we're on it right now. But I do feel that in portraying that city, Josiah Bancroft was being about as explicit as ever in the series in terms of the social critique.
Yeah.
Because you have this very much walled off, separate, privileged group that is basically not wanting to let in the rabble. And Bancroft deliberately, I think this is a mirror being held up to a lot of us here, and those of us especially who live in more developed economies, and it's a pretty apt, I think, description of the of what how a lot of people view others from the outside, and the fact that the Hods are bringing up these items, these gifts. I mean, you could do a lot with this as a metaphor for the current state of humanity, where you have the haves who are served by the have-nots, to put it in a very, as a dichotomy of a sort, which is definitely not doing it justice, but you know what I'm saying, right? You have a society of people who are privileged and enjoying that privilege, and see the very people who are making their lives possible, the very people they are exploiting, and treating them as subhuman. And that is such an apt, I feel. And so the idea that this thing just explodes and goes off into space after 5,000 Hod children have been let in.
Yeah.
That is the promise there. That is the key thing. That all these children have been let in. They are going to transform the society against the will of many of its inhabitants.
Yeah, and
to a better place, because they are going to learn social responsibility. They're going to learn communion. They're going to learn what it means to be part of humanity, not some privileged, sectioned off, group of people that exploits everybody else without having to think about them.
Yeah,
right?
It's Nebos. Nebos is the city.
Nebos, yes.
And weren't the Hods also originally like respected? Like they were the builders of, like they were the bricklayers.
Yes. They're the people who built the society, and now you treat them like crap.
Yes, like it's just been too long that they've forgotten everyone has forgotten the purpose of why they're there. And the people who were central to the bricklayer society have been relegated to that subhuman status, which is it. Plus, not to mention the very, very, very obvious commentary on the cult of personality, celebrity, lionizing celebrity things in our culture. The movie stars with
who are very, again, privileged and exploitative. Yeah, just the way that what's her name, Runa's mother exploits Adam's story and everything. I love that first section, by the way, with Adam. That was brilliant stuff.
Good. Okay, so another common complaint is that they hate, like they've done all this and then they hate that it goes back and does 100 and something pages of Adam. Like seriously,
it was necessary though, wasn't it? Because he was gone for the third book.
I mean, I agree with you. Like I was like I have said, would you rather Hod King have been 180 pages longer so that they could have put an Adam section in there? Like, because I don't know what else you could do with it. It's got to be there, right? I don't really understand it, but that is a common thing that people just don't like. They don't like the first section with Adam.
Is Christina ready to tell us what she thinks about Mario? And
are you ready to talk about Mario? All right, Christina, come on. I'm gonna let her. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna swap with you. Go ahead. I'm right here. Don't forget, I'm here.
Okay, you're there. Hello, Christina.
So I did not plan on jumping on this, and I'm so sorry for crashing. But I actually, I read the book like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I actually took a second to look up the letter that I wrote to Bancroft after I finished it.
I forgot about that.
To review what my initial thoughts were then. Because I know where I feel now, but I struggled with the ending because I wanted so badly for it to be easy for Maria and Senlin to just like fall back into an easy relationship. And I understood why that was not realistic. And also I knew so many people that were reading it and were rooting for Edith and Senlin to be together. And like him. And I love Edith. I do. I love Edith. But I didn't want her to be with Senlin. I wanted her to be someone who picked her first. Like I didn't want her to be somebody's second choice. And so anyway, I reviewed what I wrote to Bancroft, and essentially it was I found it very meaningful that it was so realistic, I guess, in many ways, even though while it's so fantastic at the same time. And they're like on this spaceship and it's this bizarre world, and yet so much of his writing rings what I call like capital T true.
Yes.
Where it's like we can relate to that, and it's human experiences. And so would it be weird if I just like read a little bit of what I wrote to him? Because
I think it would be wonderful, actually. Please do.
So I was specifically writing a lot. I wrote a lot. It was very long. But at that point he already knew who Alan was, and so I was talking about how the books were very meaningful to me because we started reading them in the middle of a pandemic and a mental health crisis. So it was kind of a lifeline to find something that we could share and something that connected us. And also Alan relates a lot to Senlin, but I also related a lot to Senlin because Alan was the one really struggling at that time. And so I felt like I had lost him and like I was searching for him. And so to see Maria's struggle was a reminder that like she wasn't exactly looking for Senlin the whole time because she didn't have that option. She didn't have that to give. She didn't have those resources. And part of me like resented her, like, for not appreciating everything Senlin had done to try and find her.
Because we know all about it, right? Yeah.
Right. But also, we haven't seen her side of the story in depth. We've gotten little snippets, but we didn't experience it like we experienced Senlin's. And anyway, so I'm just going to read a paragraph of what I wrote, maybe 2 paragraphs.
As much as you like.
Sorry, what?
As much as you like.
I told him, I must confess, I wrestled with the ending of your series. I wanted so badly for Maria to run to Senlin, to feel safe with him and trust him, to comfort and be comforted by him as they each shared their struggles of their journey with one another. I wanted Senlin to definitively choose Maria over Edith and to find that the culmination of all his experiences had granted him new confidence and wisdom. I wanted Edith to be a heroic near martyr who was willing to go to the pyre, but somehow miraculously received a happy ending with a role and purpose suited to her great strength of character, alongside a partner who could be truly devoted to her. And I wanted a reset button to go back in our marriage and have the honeymoon phase I'd pictured. I wanted a lot of unreasonable, unrealistic things. But just like Maria and Senlin, we cannot return to our village. We can't even return to the tower we've known the past 2 years. We are flying into the unknown, into new uncharted territory, and we have a chance to craft a new culture in our relationship together, honoring our experiences and our unique callings and our struggles. We've lived through a Category 5 hurricane, a mental health crisis, and now a pandemic together. Our story has never been that of a fairy tale. It was more like a post-apocalyptic movie franchise where there's always an open ending for more disastrous sequels. But we are together, and there is something beautiful about being shoulder to shoulder in all the chaos and the fear and the mess. And that's how I see Maria and Senlin. Shoulder to shoulder, investing in their own unique giftings and purposes, doing all they can to make a difference for someone's life, though so much is wildly outside of their control, and choosing to walk side by side and rediscover one another in a slow and careful unfolding. This is what real life and relationship is like, and I am grateful that in the end, your series remained more true than ideal. Maybe I, like Senlin, am learning how to strive to hold my values while seeing the world as it is rather than how I want it to be.
Wow.
So it was very meaningful. The series was very meaningful to me. And in the end, the ending was what I think I needed it to be.
I'm sorry, I'm choking up a little bit here. That was just so beautiful. I think you just said everything better than Alan and I could have.
She always says crap better than me, Philip. She's so much more helpful than I am.
Well, to be fair,
I'm out here using the word crap repeatedly.
and
douchebag.
favorite word.
That's it.
But to be fair, that was not off the cuff. I
Yeah.
over that letter before I sent it, so that was why it was a little easier to just read it. It feels like cheating.
I don't think it was cheating. I thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just so moved right now, and thank you. That was just beautiful.
I felt a lot of hope in the ending, even though it was also not what I expected and not how I would have written it myself if I were writing it.
Yeah.
But I still found it hopeful that they were together, and that it wasn't this complete like closed door, and that they were also sort of rediscovering themselves and one another. And I thought, you know what, there's a deep beauty in that, because marriages are hard, relationships are hard. And so to choose one another again, kind of, and also to say like, well, who are you now? Like, we're not the people that got married.
That's right.
We're new people, we're different people, so who are we now? And learn that. And so, and all of this I also wrote before the car accident, and so
my goodness.
the like post-apocalyptic theme. Who knows what our next sequel will be?
Wow. But yeah, you're so right. I mean, that's so beautifully said. Maria needs time to get to know this new Senlin, and she needs time for him to get to know the new her, So you just said it so beautifully. Wow. Thank you. Yeah.
That's all I have. That's all I
Oh,
wanted to.
my goodness. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm just going to tell people to skip to whatever this is. I'm going to timestamp this and tell me. All right. Skip me and Alan and just go right to Christina. Yeah.
No, but it that was the most like impactful part of the book for me in the long run. Of course I can talk about other things too, but I just popped in really to talk about the ending.
Oh, you are most welcome to say
I
anything.
was curious. I was listening at the door like, what is Dylan saying? But I don't want to derail your thing, so I'll step out.
Oh,
You guys
derail away all you want, you know.
well,
That's
thank you for inviting me to come share.
Oh, thank you, Christina. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
I told you she had good stuff to say.
Oh my God, she's got me almost like in tears.
She's out here laying bare our struggles that we had during those years. Yes, it's fine. She's in there mouthing like, I'm sorry, is that okay? Like, I don't care. Like I talk about my mental health on the channel all the time. Like, but I'm not ashamed of the struggles I've gone through. I think our culture like wants us to be ashamed of that way.
Are we all supposed to pretend that our marriages are perfect all the time?
Yes, which then causes other people to have problems in their marriage because they're like, well, why is this person's marriage isn't perfect? No, it's freaking not. No, it is not. So
wow, I'm blown away. But I guess with the time we have left, I don't want to keep you forever because you have work and stuff and and important things going on. So, but I do want to talk about our characters and who we love. We both love Edith, I think, and where she ends up at the end. There's no romantic partner, at least immediately for her, but she has this position of responsibility, which she has embraced. She still feels a bit overwhelmed, but she is embracing this role, and there's nobody around who'd be better for it, I think. And I love that the remaining Wakemen, she basically recruits them. They were working for Marat. They were trying to kill her, and she is in the process of recruiting them to help her. She is making do with what she has, and I think these are signs of a great leader. She is going to be the next Sphinx or whatever. There's that symbolic moment when Byron gives her the mask, and she's gonna, as Byron says, you're gonna put your own stamp on this role.
Yeah, I love that the Sphinx, who's the bricklayer's granddaughter, she was an engineer. Like she and that's where all this clockwork came. Like that was her Sphinx. And I like the fact that there's been this many Sphinxes and each one had a different kind of specialty. I will anticipate that Edith will be restoring justice to the tower, like restoring some semblance of.
She'll do her best.
Yeah. I mean, she will not. I do not think that Edith will abandon the Wakemen the way that the Sphinx did. Like the Sphinx. I think the Sphinx had just been defeated by the overwhelming cynicism of the project before her. And I think Edith has a new lease on that, and I think she's got to make the Wakemen care, and currently they don't. So
the Sphinx failed in a way, and Iron points it out. She's like, the worst boss I've ever had, the Sphinx. I love that moment. So I'm happy with where Edith ends up, even though the romance with Senlin doesn't happen, and they have that very poignant moment where they do the knock. As for other characters, I was very satisfied with Adam and Runa, and their romance was nice. Voletta, I was scared. I knew from the beginning that Redelman was going to die in some sacrifice or something, and that happened. But I love what was happening between. Voletta was genuinely sad when Redelman died, and Voletta's got this different perspective on life. She's got this bigger, vaster perspective, and so she's changed. She's not the same person, the same. Carefree girl who was jumping on tight ropes and swinging from trapezes and all of that. I mean, there's been a serious change in her, but I still love her character, and that girl is still in there, but very different perspective now. Were you happy with Voletta's arc?
Yeah, I was. I mean, the whole Sphinx juice stuff was weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the blood of, it's like the ichor of the gods, like the blood of the universe.
Yeah.
So when it's running through you, you become like you just know all the tower's memories, or it's very weird. But I did end up liking Valletta. How now Valletta is the one looking after Adam. Like Valletta's in charge. Like Adam is now, just kind of along for the ride, and Valletta's the one she's piloting the ship, isn't she? Isn't Valletta?
Well, actually, he's the pilot. She's the navigator.
Oh yeah, he's the one guiding it, but she's the one
She's telling him where to go. Yeah,
and theoretically they're going to go and they're going to start the project again wherever they land.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
It seems to be. I think the idea is that there are other towers, and so was this tower a colony at one point?
Isn't there a big war going on somewhere?
Well, we don't know. We're left with an entirely ambiguous ending, where they don't know where they're going. There's speculation that maybe they're going to be seeding new, towers in various places, and that the tower that they came from was one of those, maybe at one point, or who knows. But yeah, I think it's an interesting promise, and I like Adam and Valletta's role at the end. I also love that Redelman is a voice in the ship, and you can imagine him, interacting.
It's like Flight of the Navigator or a less murderous Hal.
Yeah,
it's just Frogman Redelman being like, "Hey guys, so turn left that way, I guess."
Yeah, and his the turnaround in his character too. He was this monster, right? And suddenly when he sees him, shoots him, right? And Redelman is like, I can understand that reaction,
Right.
So he has some cool moments, and
that's right, because Senlin isn't there when Redelman comes in the Hod King. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so he doesn't know. And I loved that we did get the rescue of Senlin's friends, big guy and little guy.
Yes, Fingal and Taru.
And Taru. Yeah.
Fingal and Taru.
Yeah, and who else? I mean,
are Gaul and Taru, are they on the ship or are they in the tower?
They're on the ship.
Okay, so they're with Mari and Senlin, and okay, cool.
No, I mean they're with Edith.
They're on the
I meant the other ship. Yeah. So yes, right. So when you say ship, you meant the top of the tower.
I mean the spaceship. They're stayed in the tower. Okay, gotcha.
They're with the what's the ship that Edith captains?
Is it the State of Art?
State of Art. Yeah. They're on board the State of Art. Yeah, at the end, and they're helping Edith. In the little epilogue thing we get there.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
They're helping Edith, although one imagines, Fingal especially will want to be back with his family. But I mean, I love the cast we get here. I love these characters are very dear to me, as changed as they are through this journey. Every single one of them has an arc. Iron and Anne. I mean, that's so beautiful, so lovely. I love what happens with Iron and Anne in here. And it began in the Hod King, of course, but it becomes so endearing in the Fall of Babel too, doesn't it?
That's what it was. Sorry, it's not that Senlin didn't get to reunite with the crew. It's that Valletta didn't get to say goodbye to Iron.
Right.
Like that was I was so upset about that.
And so was Valletta. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Valletta didn't get to say goodbye to Iron, and I understand. Like, they don't need each other anymore. Like they made each other better. Like the Iron and Valletta they were so good at like adding confidence for Iron and knowing that like she could be loved by someone who didn't care who she was, and Iron went through all that self-loathing and poor self-esteem, and now she's with Anne, and they have plenty of adopted children and stuff, and that they're gonna be able to I don't know, governess or whatever. And
I do love that on the spaceship you have what promises to be a much more just society, that those Nebosans needed those children as much as those children needed those Nebosans.
Mm-hmm.
That is a brilliant stroke. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing that Bancroft has done here.
So good.
such good stuff. So that's our take. Anything else you want to say, Alan, on Fall of Babel? Did we miss it? I'm sure we missed a ton of stuff, but
I just I liked it a lot, and I like talking about it again. I'll reread this at some point. He is not done with this world. I know. I think he's writing a novella, and he's just having trouble like getting where he wants to go. Like I think it's a continuation. Like I think so I know he's not done. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
We might have some answers to some of those ambiguous things.
I know that Kyle has already, he hasn't made it this far. He's already posted down below, like, I gave it 2 stars, not 1. I know, Kyle. I'm riling you up. And all of the people who are going to literally put our name on the list for un-American activities or whatever for all of our talks. I try to like I'm not a sickle waving Soviet, like I don't got my sickle out there, but it is ludicrous to say, like, you know what, we live in a perfectly just society. No, we freaking don't. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with calling attention to that. So and of course my wife coming in and being way more eloquent than me
and me,
like always, like she just puts stuff in. I mean, you do too. When I watch your reviews, like y'all just put stuff in a way, and I'm just like, how do y'all talk like that? Like, how do y'all think like that? I can't think that way.
Well, Alan, you are the person who got me to read the series, so I wouldn't have been thinking any of these thoughts without you. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
thank you very much.
I'm glad you read it. I'm so glad you liked it, and I was really concerned. I was like, is he gonna like this last one? I'm like, he'll appreciate that he went for it. I don't know if he's gonna like it, but he appreciated that he went for it.
I actually love it. Yeah,
it's good.
5 stars.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and Bancroft he's also really, really nice. Like he is a super nice guy.
That does not surprise me. Yeah.
He's I don't know. I wish I knew as much about English as he does. Like the
language, you mean?
Yeah, the language. Seriously.
Yeah.
Man. So, but yeah, I loved it. Edith is one of my favorite fantasy characters. Like Edith is, and the thing is, like, I read this, like Christina, I finished it before she did. So over 2 years ago, I finished this series, and I haven't read it since then. I still think about the characters from this book.
Yeah.
Because they're just so, I don't know, like rich and well realized. You know, they seem to me like real people caught up in circumstances that are far beyond their control and are trying to make some sense and bring some order to the chaos and, you know, make a better life for themselves and for the people around them. And I think Senlin does that. I think Senlin made them, like, was the catalyst for them all seeing, to like break the cynic glasses that they were all wearing. Like Senlin's like, hey guys, well, what if we didn't give up? And they're like, you know what? We never thought of that. Let's do it. And, you know, and he's done, and then they're able to grow into their own people just because there was a guy that came along and said, what if we still thought people were like, could be decent? What if we strive for decency? And I love that. Like, I just love that.
Senlin is this dogged everyman who changes other people by insisting that they be their better selves.
Absolutely. Yes. Fantastically put.
Yeah.
I agree.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for getting me to read this, for discussing it with me. Maybe our friends will watch this video and who knows, maybe even
they'll have a big long comment on why we're wrong.
Maybe we validate their perspective as well, though.
Dude, I understand. Like, I get it.
Yeah. So that's perfectly fine. But I just love this myself. I'm so glad Bancroft wrote the series. It is joining my favorite series of all time. Very moving, very poignant, very powerful, just brilliant stuff. So, all right. Well, if you've made it this far in this conversation, thank you. And I would encourage you to check out Alan's channel. It is over the Library of Alexandria, where there's all kinds of great stuff going on. I would, encourage you to check it out. And thanks so much for everything, guys, for watching this. And until next time. All right.